After 5 decades of confidentiality, Charles Duke, the youngest astronaut to traverse the lunar surface, ultimately disclosed the unforeseen. He refrained from discussing glory and did not reminisce about the achievement of Apollo 16. He revealed a concealed matter, one that no report had ventured to address for 50 years, an uncharted region, a disrupted signal, an entity absent from all maps. The fall was exceedingly tense and chaotic, but we persevered and reached the final minute before landing, at which point our trajectory was incorrect. This is the ultimate confession from the man who traversed the shadow of the moon. I am on the moon, experiencing excitement, wonder, thrill, and adventure. As Buzz Aldrin articulated, it was a glorious desolation. Charles Duke is the sole individual in human history to have left a family photograph on the moon. The media initially characterized it as an emotional personal moment devoid of any scientific objectives. The photograph transcended a mere depiction of his wife and 2 sons. Duke stated that a coded symbol, an internal sequence of characters utilized exclusively in NASA's specialized communication system, was inscribed on the reverse side. I was not meant to leave anything behind aside from the test equipment, with the exception of one photograph, but I was compelled to do so. Duke asserts that this information is corroborated by the existence of a scanned copy of the photograph featuring unusual ink on the reverse, which has been archived at the Houston Center since the 1970s, however is absent from any official NASA documentation. In a recent private discussion, Duke stated that he proposed carrying the photo following a direct dialogue with his superiors during pre-mission training. I cannot ascertain the reasons behind their agreement or the identity of the agreeing parties, but I was explicitly informed on one occasion that just one object was permitted, with no inquiries allowed. Duke stated that, as Apollo 16 was poised to depart from the lunar surface, he oversaw the last staging area during EVA-3, where the equipment was gathered. The photograph was positioned in the southern corner adjacent to the lander, around 7 meters from the rover vicinity, beside a rock designated with a distinctive code that did not correspond to the official rock sample numbering scheme outlined in the report. Duke asserts that the photo location was not arbitrary. He referred to this as the signal interference point, the location where the most anomalous disturbances in the initial geomagnetic observations were recorded. During the trip, the Apollo 16 team adjusted the receiver's position only once, resulting in the image being left at that moment. The seismic data gathered in the 40 minutes following the team's departure from the surface exhibited various peculiar anomalies, which were acknowledged but not elucidated in any public documentation. Charles Duke did not explicitly address the issue, but stated, "The photo was not retained at my behest. It was solicited, and I merely complied." Details regarding the photo were previously disseminated on American media, but have since been infrequently referenced in official records. Until recently, reproductions of the original photograph exhibited remnants of rubber marks on the reverse, accompanied by faint handwriting presumed to be that of Duke. In an unpublished interview, Duke stated, "Each individual possesses a unique method of maintaining silence. For me, it was a photograph." When inquired about his delayed disclosure, Duke succinctly responded, "The photograph remained so I could depart." Charles Duke's reticence was not solely attributed to the act of leaving a photograph, but also to the experiences he encountered in the location he had occupied. The indications become more apparent as Apollo 16 neared the landing site, a region he acknowledged was distinct from his initial observation from orbit. During those hours on the lunar surface, a series of anomalous events transpired, neither fortuitous nor explicable by conventional statistics. The meeting in the obscurity of Descartes Mountains. The Descartes Plateau was selected as the Apollo 16 landing location due to its harsh topography, which is unlike any previously explored area. Charles Duke consistently observed that the region possessed a factor causing instrument instability. In an internal crew memo, he described, "We saw faint points of light moving slowly, then disappearing behind the rocks." Upon landing, the probe detected an unusual signal coming from the north of the plateau. Duke and John Young were instructed to adjust the module's position a few hundred meters to avoid the area. He claims this was not part of the original plan, and the change was only communicated to mission control after landing. During their second lunar walk, while the two were traveling with the rover, the transmitter experienced a 7-minute interference. They called back several times, but the audio signal was only static while all systems appeared to be functioning normally. After the problem, Duke requested a stop to check, but ground orders told him to continue. In the flight log, he noted there was a noise like metal hitting metal, not coming from the equipment. The corresponding recording was confirmed to exist in the technical archive. After returning to Earth, that part of the signal was removed from the public tape. Nonetheless, Duke said the entire control team heard it clearly during the live transmission. Hours later, at the final rock sampling point, the portable seismometer showed unusual movement. Duke noted in his handwritten log, "The oscillations are increasing like something is moving underneath." He was not allowed to continue testing because the EVA was nearing its end. In a recent interview, Duke admitted that the incident was the only time I was truly scared. "We were standing on the quietest land known to man. But underfoot, everything was shaking slightly. No one wanted to talk about it anymore," he recalled. Back in the module, he did a quick inspection of the samples. One marked with an unusual code was a darker gray, smoother, and colder than the others. After the flight, it was no longer included in the 200 pounds rock catalog. In a separate video, Duke remarked tersely, "There's something they took, and I know exactly what it is." He did not elaborate on what the object was, but indicated that the data related to it was classified at a highly classified level. Years later, when asked about the time of the loss of contact, Duke simply replied, "We never lost contact. We were isolated from the primary channel." Data regarding the seismic signals and recorded fluctuations corresponded with his diary, indicating an anomalous activity lasting approximately 20 minutes. This information was encoded in a unique symbol within the technical records, only to be deciphered decades later, aligning with Duke's account. "Everything we do is documented," he stated at the Texas meeting. However, not everything is retained. This assertion has been interpreted by many as evidence of omitted information during the publication process. In addition to the technical data, Duke's handwritten notes indicate a significant alteration in his demeanor. The final entries in his Descartes diary state, "Seen, heard, understood what they wished to conceal." No further notes are made after this. Life after returning to Earth was unlike any other Apollo crew member. While others were celebrated, rested, and shared in their experiences, for Duke, things began to change as soon as he stepped off the capsule. The threat on Earth and the contract that couldn't be broken. Immediately after returning from Apollo 16, Charles Duke did not get the same rest as other astronauts. Within the first 48 hours, he was asked to attend a private meeting that lasted more than 3 hours with only 3 people present besides himself. The meeting was not held at the Johnson Space Center, but at a facility under direct control of the Air Force. There he was given a special document, a pledge of absolute secrecy stamped with the highest level of security at the time. In the document, Duke was asked to confirm that all the unusual phenomena observed during the trip would never be mentioned again in any context, including before Congress or in internal hearings. Attached to the document was a verbal note from one of the 3 present. "You have done your duty. Don't let what you saw mess up the rest of your life." Duke was not allowed to keep a copy of the pledge. After signing, the entire document was confiscated on the spot. "I signed something that I couldn't take back," he confirmed in a closed-door interview last year. "They didn't ask me to lie. They asked me to keep quiet." Since then, his every move has been closely monitored. He has been accompanied by at least one representative from the Federal Censorship Agency whenever he attends a public event. Questions that are not technical are cut from the recording or not broadcast. Many assumed this was standard procedure, but Duke revealed there was a clear difference between him and his contemporaries. When a fellow astronaut commented on the strange object on the moon, he was suspended from speaking for 2 years. Charles Duke never mentioned it publicly, but in a private conversation, he said, "I know what they can do. I have observed sufficiently to understand my boundaries." One of his most fraught interactions with the media occurred at an aviation conference when an audience member abruptly inquired about the signal loss during Apollo 16. Duke swiftly redirected the conversation, resulting in the press conference concluding within minutes. Years later, he elucidated, "I did not evade the question due to a lack of information. I lacked alternatives. The compulsion to maintain silence extended beyond the authorities." In the years following his mission, he received numerous calls from unidentified sources, most conveying the same message: honor your commitment. On one business trip, he discovered that personal documents had been accessed, despite no evidence of forced entry. These occurrences were never reported, yet Duke meticulously documented them in his personal notebook. When questioned about his decision to sign the pledge, he asserted it was not a viable option at that time. Since then, he has predominantly refrained from discussing subjects outside of technical matters. Although he frequently attends scientific conferences, he consistently adheres to the boundaries of permissible content. Duke has never published information without prior authorization. In an unreleased recording, he stated, "I understood the consequences of speaking out. I also knew what would happen if I didn't, and I chose to let others live in peace." This pressure lasted for decades, affecting his entire family. His wife once shared that he often woke up in the middle of the night, said nothing, just walked around the house in silence. Duke never confirmed the cause, but he repeatedly said, "I saw something I shouldn't have seen, and they don't want me to repeat it." Keeping silent for many years was not only to comply with the commitment, but also the only way to protect the safety of himself and those close to him. It was from this moment that the stories he never told began to be recorded. And it all started with a lingering dream before the day he left Earth. The dream before the launch and the shadows that stayed. A week before Apollo 16 launched, Charles Duke fell ill with a severe flu. He was confined to the crew quarters where he was cared for in isolation to ensure he was fit for the mission. During his fever, he experienced a dream that lasted several hours, which he later described as the scariest thing before the flight. The dream was not like a typical nightmare. Duke said he was standing on a barren land with the silhouette of a tilted module in the distance and the sky as gray as ash. He called out, but no one answered. When he tried to move, he noticed the ground beneath him vibrating slightly, emitting a metallic sound. The sensation was so real that when he woke up, it took him several minutes to realize he was in a quarantine area in Houston. When he awoke, he told his wife about the dream, but he did not elaborate. He simply said, "I'm not sure I'll come back." Duke, who had remained calm throughout the training, recorded this in her diary. Years later, she confirmed that it was the only time her husband had ever shown any fear before a mission. After the flight, Duke never mentioned the dream in public, but in private meetings, he said, "The dream did not stop when I woke up." He believed that the experience was related to what happened during the trip and to what he witnessed on the Cartesian plateau. After Apollo 16, the dream returned repeatedly. He said that every time he closed his eyes, he would see the module falling and a dark area spreading behind it. The dreams became so frequent that he began to have trouble sleeping. There were nights when he would lie awake until dawn, staring out the window, waiting for the sun to rise before going to sleep. He once described it as, "I knew something was watching. It was not located on the moon. It resided within me." During this period, Duke underwent significant transformation. He abandoned his engineering job to pursue social and religious activity. He claimed to have discovered redemption by faith, however, in his speeches, he intermittently reiterated a certain phrase: "There exist phenomena that surpass human explanation." A former colleague recounted that during a private conversation, Duke stated slowly and emphatically, "I observed something absent from the training plan." When inquired about its meaning, Duke replied, "You were not present, so you would not comprehend." After reaching the age of 80, the dream reoccurred with greater frequency. He would awaken nightly and traverse the home in silence. Relatives noted that he frequently paused before old family photographs, seemingly juxtaposing them with his recollections. He never truly departed from that location. Duke once stated on a confidential tape. Duke stated that he had originally believed the dream was a consequence of stress. However, as time progressed, he became increasingly certain that it was a manifestation of recollection, an experience he could not relinquish. "I did not envision myself as lost," he stated, "I merely envisioned that my surroundings contained something incomplete." Duke's alteration in demeanor and conduct astonished numerous acquaintances. He was recognized as a composed, reserved individual who consistently exhibited a military demeanor. Following a year of publicly articulating his religion, others believed he had surmounted it. However, he continued to harbor a sense of terror. Consequently, he resolved to voice his thoughts one final time, to articulate what had remained unrecognized, rather than to narrate a tale. The ultimate confession before it is too late. At the age of 90, Charles Duke produced an unscripted and unedited video lasting about 20 minutes. He sat solitary, gazing directly into the camera, articulating in a deliberate, measured tone as though each word had been restrained for an extended period. The recording commenced with the statement, "I have remained silent as requested for 50 years. He affirmed that during the Apollo 16 mission, his team identified an area of anomalous signals approximately 500 meters from the module. During an equipment test, he detected an oscillating signal of indeterminate origin recurring in an 11-second cycle. The seismograph exhibited a significant increase in measurements for around 17 minutes, however it did not correlate with any human activity." Duke did not provide a particular location, however, he indicated that the space was occupied by a cylindrical object, its surface encrusted with fine dust, approximately the same height as himself. Neither depicted on topographic maps nor reported to the center. He uncovered the object when John Young was in the command module, as per the narrative. Owing to time limitations, he had merely a few minutes to examine it. He described it as unlike any equipment I had ever encountered. Moreover, it did not reflect light as a rock does. Duke refrains from employing any speculative language in the video. He asserts that this is neither an emotion nor an error. He maintains, "I am certain of what I witnessed. I acknowledge that we did not initiate the discussion, and I am aware that I am prohibited from addressing it." For the subsequent 50 years, he anticipated that someone would voice their concerns, nevertheless no living individual ever alluded to it. He was certain that everyone had endorsed the same commitment as he had. Regarding the object, he stated it possessed a depression in the center, suggesting mechanical injury, however exhibited no indications of fracture. As he prepared to pivot and get a nearby specimen, his radio produced a loud crackling noise that persisted for 4 seconds. Subsequently, stillness ensued. The signal was absent from all available records of Apollo 16. Duke asserted that he was aware the original data was intact. It was simply never accessible. He referred to the entire experience as the moment I comprehended that a greater force than ourselves was at play. In conclusion, he stated unequivocally, "I require no one to believe me, I merely need someone to document this." Following the video, Duke declined to respond to any other inquiries. His family verified that this was the final occasion he referenced the Apollo 16 mission in any capacity. His existence was bound to a scheme that consistently concealed the complete truth. However, for him, the most enduring aspect was not the lunar surface, but the signal he was aware he had transmitted. From that signal, all subsequent events commenced. Charles Duke's narrative is profoundly stimulating. What he discloses is not merely the recollection of a guy who traversed the lunar surface, but also the conclusive testament from a historical observer who remained silent for half a century. If you deem the information in this video valuable, please like to endorse the content. Disseminate it among your acquaintances and ensure you subscribe to the channel to avoid missing further significant narratives. What is your opinion on Charles Duke's remarks? Please provide a remark below. I will read everything.